There's a lot of dark things in the world that many people don't know about. These things don't care about us. They don't care about our lives. To them, we are just pests running around in their land. You see, I'm part of a Cryptid task force. We're pretty well funded, and we have the best gear and training money can buy. A lot of the guys here are former Tier 1 operators from all over the world. Some SAS, some MARSOC, Delta, PJ, Spetsnaz. You get the idea. Our job is to be the wall that separates their world from ours. We get deployed to various areas where there is a surge in cryptid activity. Number of missing hikers or campers spiking. We get sent in. Strange sightings. We investigate. More often than not, our encounters are to neutralize the threats above all else. And trust me, we've adopted a pretty simple yet catchy motto here. Nothing bullets can't cure. Now, I'm going to be straight up. I do not recommend anyone going hunting for any of these things. This isn't a movie or a TV show. These things will kill you, eat you, and shit you out without hesitation. You do not know how many wannabe cryptid hunters we've had to scrape up while we're dealing with an active target. Also, just a side note, being in this task force doesn't mean you get to encounter every single cryptid. There are many I haven't engaged that other teams have had the fate of dealing with. Now here's a little bit about me. I spent some time in Force Recon. I've been around the world, seen my fair share of stuff and how brutal we can be as species. And trust me, that stuff stays with you. After I did my time, I decided to get into private contracting. One thing led to another, and through word of mouth, I ended up in this outfit. On to what I feel many of you are waiting for. Where I'm stationed at the moment, the main groups I deal with are werewolves and stag/deer people. Lately these groups have been quiet, with the deer people being the most peaceful of the two. The werewolves, we've been able to create a set of boundaries with them. You see, the werewolves themselves are not transformed or off-the-grid type of individuals. They've told us they keep to themselves and help police their own if any try to cross the line. Lately though, we've been hearing that there have been sightings of large bipedal creatures skulking in the outskirts of towns bordering the forest. Missing persons, and even one story from a family to their local PD about how their children witnessed their father being dragged away by the dog people. We decided to pay the local alphas a visit. It was an 8-man team with a platoon-sized force on standby as QRF in case the proverbial shit hit the fan. We loaded up in our MRAP and drove off into the forest. It was a quiet ride, save for the occasional story or joke being tossed around. I myself was nodding off and catching up on some extra hours of sleep, before being nudged awake by the feeling of the vehicle coming to a stop. The hatch opened and we all moved out and set up a perimeter. We were in front of a makeshift shantytown made out of abandoned RVs and mobile homes. As we approached them, we spotted movement through one of the windows. Our CO told us to stand down and walk forward with his hands up. He only took 10 steps before a man built like Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator stepped out from one of the mobile homes. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my grip on my weapon tightened. The air was filled with tension as we watched our commanding officer look up at this giant, and then laugh. The man laughed as well as they embraced each other with a firm handshake, with an audible, "Hey, how you been, big fella?" being heard. I relaxed a bit, as did the rest of our team. The man beckoned us all closer, with our commanding officer nodding that it was all clear. We found out that apparently there had been a pack of younger werewolves running about, causing havoc and disturbing the peace of the general area and trying to gain strength, which connects them to strings of missing individuals. We reported back to the base, and we, along with 3 other teams, were tasked with SAR op deep into the pack's territory. Our secondary objective was to subdue or neutralize the younger pack. To be honest, I was hoping that we could talk these guys down. Not knowing that this pack was filled with hotheads trying to make a name for themselves as the new big bad on the block, I doubt we were going to be able to. At 1700 hours, we moved out, pushing past the boundaries placed by the treaty some years ago. It was unnerving to say the least. Don't get me wrong, we are all solid guys, each seeing our share of chaos and brutality that would swallow the soul of a regular individual. But this wasn't storming an insurgent stronghold or securing a VIP. One wrong move and the entire operation could go tits up and a lot of good men would die. And that's when our vehicle got hit. MRAPs are designed to take IEDs like a champ and keep rolling until the occupants are out of the kill zone. But I don't think they accounted for the factor of nearly 300 pounds of pure muscle slamming into it at 35 to 50 miles per hour. It sent our vehicle tumbling onto its side and me hanging on for dear life. In the initial days of recovering from the impact, I heard the metal on the back door straining, and then I saw it come flying right off. The beast then peeked its head in and eyed all of us, as if picking from a large buffet table. Its bright yellow eyes locked onto mine and I froze. I couldn't bring my weapon up, or nor could I call out. All I could do was lay there as this hulking monstrosity reached for me. Gunfire rang out, and I saw the impact of 3 rounds into its lower abdomen. It howled and stumbled back. Our commanding officer had its sidearm out as he pumped the last 7 rounds into its upper chest and face. It fell onto the dirt, writhing in pain, smoke visibly coming out of the entry points. Fun fact, our rounds are silver-tipped, and for our sidearms, silver-tipped hollow points filled with holy ash. We exited the vehicle and watched as our commander, I'll call him Conrad, dispatched the guy with 2 rounds from his rifle to the dome. That's when the gunfire started ringing out in the distance, and the howls. The radio in the MRAP came to life with a frantic voice on the net. "This is Wolfpack 3-6 to Apache Flight. Confirm call sign." "Wolfpack 3-6, this is Black Raven, over." "Solid copy, Black Raven. Request air support at these coordinates. All units in the area. Message follows. Nirvana, I say again, Nirvana. Damn it, Black Raven, we need support." "Copy that, coming in hot." "They're closing. God, shit." The gunfire reached a crescendo, only to be drowned out by the sound of a hellfire impacting the area. We sat there in a stunned silence, looking at one another before Conrad interjected. "Zweihander, this is Hunter Actual. All bodies accounted for. We are still Oscar Mike to objective. How copy?" "Zweihander to Hunter Actual. Solid copy on all. Be advised, Wolfpack is down. Rendezvous with Eagle and Dragoon 3 clicks from your position." "Solid copy, Zweihander. Hunter Actual out." Conrad looked at all of us. "Keep your head on a swivel, boys. We're in their country now." Needless to say, the hellfire probably helped our rendezvous with Eagle and Dragoon more than anything. After grouping up into a sizable force, we pushed forward, locating the lair of the pack. They were holed up in a cave with makeshift barricades around the entrance. We set up positions all around it, our commanding officers drawing up a plan to neutralize the hostiles, and hopefully save any of the missing people taken over the past week, if they weren't turned already. And that's when we saw somebody walk out. He looked no older than 19, but he walked as if he was better than us. He stood at the entrance with several others coming up behind him, and he called out to us. "All right, we know why you're here, and trust me, you don't want to mess with us. We can take all of you out easily. There are more of us than you in here. Too many bodies for your bullets." As per protocol, our retort was for him and his compatriots to stand down, coming for questioning and judgment by the Elder Alphas, and to release anybody that they had held captive. The look on the kid's face was one of disgust and contempt, as if we had bruised his ego. He flipped us off and crouched down on all fours and began to transform. Idiot, I thought. Before he could even finish, a shot rang out. A silver-tipped round impacted his forehead, splitting it like a melon. The silence that followed was unnerving. The other individuals looked at his body, and then at us, and then dropped to their knees, hands in the air. Conrad looked at me, motioning for me and several others to move in, secure and search the compound. I got up and I moved, my rifle leveled and ready, moving swiftly towards them, heel to toe, heel to toe. I got a good look at them, all kids and some were crying. Others were shocked into silence as we zip-tied them. After they were secured, we moved into the cave itself. I tossed a flare in, shouting out, "CRT, anybody in there?" We got a response, albeit a weak one. We moved to the sound and found our missing individuals, all 8 of them. 5 males, 3 females, all obviously shook up and in need of aid. We moved them out onto awaiting MRAPs heading back to base. From what we gathered, we killed the head honcho of the pack, and their strongest members were taken out by the Hellfire. The survivors we questioned all said that the kidnapped individuals were set to be turned and added to their numbers. We recovered the bodies of the wolf pack, and gave them the burial that they deserved. That's all I can say for now. I gotta go. We got reports of something big happening and command needs all hands on deck. Take care, all of you. And remember, nothing bullets can't cure. Hey everybody. I hope you all have been well and safe since my last post. Boy, do I have a story to tell. Did I ever mention how much I hated wannabe cryptid hunters? You know the type. They read about cryptids on forums, watch a bunch of online videos and then decide, hey, I'm gonna go out with my hunting rifle and hunt down one. I'm a badass. Yeah, those guys. I remember telling you all we had something big going down. It was a mess now, let me get down to the details. The perimeter guards caught one of the deer people coming towards our compound. It wasn't uncommon. They would pass by, interact with us, and quietly go about their business. Only this time, it was carrying a bundle in its arms. The guard slowly strode up onto it, and then quickly radioed into command about her find. Apparently the bundle was its offspring, dead from a gunshot wound. The deer people are a very neutral group, and they stay in heavy isolation at times, often nervous and wary of humans. It took us quite some time to build up a bond with them. They understand our language, which helps immensely with communication and peaceful relocation when they wander too far. From what was described to us, its child was simply exploring its surroundings, albeit a bit farther from their habitat, but the herd was close in case anything would happen. According to the head of the herd, the air smelt wrong, as if an outsider had arrived. But before he could figure out what was happening, a shot rang out. He and several other males made their way as fast as they could to the area where the sound had originated from, and found 2 humans standing over the child. The humans in question fled the scene when they saw the large group of deer people congregating. They came to us immediately, hoping that we could find the humans that did this. The base commander call sign, Zweihandler, sent them on their way and reached out to the local contacts we had. What was relayed back to us was concerning to say the least. Apparently there was a large group of hunters coming through, and the other day 2 were seen muttering about how they found a herd of wendigos. Since then, the group decided to pack up and move. We launched a UAV to scout the area and found a large heat signature deep in the forest. Upon closer examination, we found a makeshift encampment, complete with barricades and fighting positions. We mobilized ASAP with Hunter Team, my group, taking point. We inserted 4 clicks from the encampment and moved in on foot under the cover of darkness. Our objective was to recon the area, observe and, if possible, impede the group's operational capabilities. As we neared the encampment, the smell of fresh blood filled the air. Conrad held up a fist and we crouched down. Ahead of us was the hunter encampment, but there was no noise. No bustle of activity whatsoever. He opened his palm and he slowly gestured forward. And as one, we slowly approached the camp. As we got closer, it became more apparent as to what had happened. There were body parts everywhere, spent shell casings, spatters of blood on barricades, vehicles in the grass. It was a massacre. We fanned out examining everything. We noticed the scattered piles of shell casings meant that they were firing in all directions, with no clear target. I was confused. This was far out of werewolf territory, and the deer people were nowhere near this area and are completely peaceful. I looked at Conrad, who just stood there, looking at it all. I could tell that the gears were turning in his head, trying to make sense of it. I was trying as well, but I couldn't shake the feeling in the air, the feeling like we didn't belong, the sense of primal dread gnawing at my very soul. I was shaken out of my trance by Conrad barking orders for us to form up and set up a defensive perimeter. He was frantic, pacing up and down like a madman. He cupped the side of his headset and started to halfway speak and shout. I never saw this stoic leader of mine lose his cool before like he did now. Zweihander, this is Hunter Actual. Be advised, Algonquin. All units on the net message follows. Algonquin. My blood ran cold and my heart dropped. Algonquin was code word for Wendigo. Command ran us through the rumors of Wendigo sightings and even beeped up our own patrols, but we didn't find any. In the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of movement. I turned and I leveled my rifle, focusing on a tree far from the encampment. I cocked my head to the side and then I backed up, noticing a pair of red eyes. "Contact!" I yelled, flipping the safety off of my rifle and opened fire, backing up. The rounds impacted the tree, the third hitting the creature behind the tree, causing it to howl. The area came alive with gunfire, as several Wendigos broke through the tree line. The red eyes, the rotten antlers, the emaciated frames. It was a scene of nightmares. They got closer to our position. We were able to drop 3 of them, but the 4th broke through our position. The Wendigo thrashed around, grabbing one of my teammates and tossing them up in the air, and then batting them away. They died on impact, the hit from the Wendigo breaking their spine. I leveled my rifle and I fired, the rounds impacting the Wendigo's skull. The creature collapsed and we immediately set fire to the bodies. The QRF came in immediately, with a cleanup crew collecting the remains of the victims, breaking down the camp and cleaning away all the blood. I looked to the side, seeing my teammate, his name was Malcolm, being gingerly picked up from where he was thrown by the Wendigo. They placed him on a stretcher and covered his body, slowly carrying him off. The ride back to the base was silent. We lost a good man that night, all because a bunch of idiots decided to meddle with a world they did not understand. But one thing concerned us and command. There were actual Wendigos in our area. Something was different, and their patterns were changing. A full investigation was being put underway, and the base was set on the highest alert level since I had been stationed there. Things are changing out here, and we need to find out what is going on before the situation escalates out of hand. And that's all I can say for now. I'm heading out on a patrol now. I'll relay any updates when I get back. Take care, all of you. So, let's cut to the chase. Command is on high alert now, more than ever. We have UAVs in the air in a constant cycle now, monitoring everywhere, close comm with the other bases and beefed up patrols. Things are crazy intense. But on another note, we got a new guy to replace Malcolm. For any of you who are questioning who Malcolm is, read the previous post and the link is above. So, let me get some details about this guy out here. For privacy reasons, I'm going to stereotypically call him Rook, since he's the new guy on the block. Rook was in the Rangers, and he did 4 tours in Afghanistan. Apparently he was in country when I was in as well. Kind of wound tight, a bit of a hard ass. So breaking him in into how things work here is going to be a challenge to say the least. Especially with how we treat certain populations. You see, when you're briefed into this job, you are told to be the wall to protect the innocent from the evil that goes bump in the night. When you get stationed here and meet these beings though, you realize that you have built a bond with them, and that some of them just want to live in peace and isolation. It took some time, but we built a very healthy system here. It takes a new guy some time to adjust, but after a few patrols, they get the idea and they keep up with how we operate. I hoped that this would be the case with Rook. I really did. I ended up being the guy to meet him at the landing pad. The CH-47 landed, the ramp lowered, and bodies spilled out. Fresh recruits to replace our losses. I saw him. Close-cut hair, that walk of purpose. I extended my hand. "Welcome, I'm a part of Hunter Team, your new outfit." He looked at me and gripped my hand with his, firmly shaking it. "Glad to be here and be of service. What can you tell me about the area?" He glanced all over, observing the air crews as they rushed to refuel the Chinook and whatever other aircraft decided to land. I looked at him and I gestured to the bunker itself. "Well, we've got the werewolves and their lot in their shantytown up in the north, the deer people in the east and the Sasquatch tribes to the west." I glanced at him as he nodded, taking the information in. Once we entered the base, I took him to our communal quarters, showing him bunk. "Look, Rook, we got a system here with all these groups. A system that works and benefits all of us. Just follow the orders of our commanding officer, and do your job, and we all make it home alive and with our limbs attached. Got it?" He nodded at me, dropping his duffel bag next to his bunk. "I got it. When is the unit heading out?" He sat down, looking up at me as 2 guys ran down the hallway putting on their gear. "We've got a patrol up north in a few hours. I have to reach out to the shantytown about a sighting reported the other day. Simple and to the point." Rook nodded at me and we left it at that. A few hours later, we geared up and we headed out, reaching the shantytown. We unloaded and we calmly walked in, dressed down for the op. We usually roll out in full operator gear, but due to the relationship with the shantytown, we were just in our combat gear minus the combat shirt, so a regular t-shirt under our plate carriers. I nodded and I waved at familiar faces, with Conrad making his way to where the alphas are. He greets them and he sits down starting conversation, leaving us to interact with the locals and monitor the area. Everybody was calm, save for Rook. He stood there, eyeing everybody. I knew his body language all too well. The same way that you would watch an area in Afghanistan, always waiting for something to pop off. The locals sensed his unease as well, keeping their distance from him. One thing leads to another, and next thing we know, there's commotion near one of the RVs, with Rook zip-tying a man in front of his family. The kids are crying, and the wife shoves him inside and begins growling. The husband is pleading with his wife, but she doesn't listen. Rook is backing up, aiming at her with his rifle, telling her to stand down at a fever pitch. He's freaking out as he's watching her turn into a werewolf form. Shit was about to hit the fan if nobody stepped in. I sprint for it, getting in between the 2 of them. I know the family very well. Their kids come and run around the MRAPs when we pass by. I call her by her name, pleading with her to calm down. She's fully transformed by now, and she stomps towards me. I'm calm, but Rook is freaking out and shaking. She sniffs me and she snarls, slowly reverting back to her human form. Everybody is watching now, even the alphas. Conrad is with them, his eyes hidden under a pair of aviators, but I know that he's pissed. I untie the husband and I apologize. He smiles and he pats me on the shoulder, understanding and rushing inside. I turn to Rook and I grab him by the strap of his plate carrier, dragging him up against a nearby tree, landing a right hook right across his face. Everybody is watching us in silence and Rook shoves me, asking me what my issue is. I explain to him that these people are no threat, that they respect our boundaries and that they just want to live in peace. He retorts that our job is to protect humanity. I grab him again, my gloved hand around his throat now. It takes a couple of guys to tear me off of him. The ride back to the base is tense, with everybody silent. As we arrive, Conrad pulls Rook to the side speaking to him, explaining to him that his stunt could have escalated the situation and caused the death of many individuals at the shantytown. We ended up being called into a briefing soon after. Command found where the Wendigos had been migrating from. We are being mobilized with an armored and aviation task force to intercept and destroy them. I'll be out for a bit. This is a big operation. I'll try to relay as soon as I get back. Stay safe, everyone. It's been a good couple of days and I can explain where I've been. We took the fight to them. It was a major operation and we took them out. Command found out where the stream of Wendigos was coming from and we brought the pain. We were given an armored task force to assist with dealing with the threat, as just sending ground troops would basically be free food for them. Let's get on to the meat of our report for all of you. Command was contacted by one of our sister bases deep up north near the Canadian border. Apparently their drone found the telltale signs of Wendigos encroaching in the area. Knowing that they were dealing with a small group, pushing southward towards us, they asked if we were willing to participate in a joint SAR destruction operation on the Wendigo threat. Zweihander decided to send a large response force up north, which I was a part of. We would meet up with the other base's forces along with heavy armor and air cover, and push into the Wendigo territory and annihilate them, while also keeping an eye out for civilians in our AO to evacuate to rescue. Command decided the operation should start at least the day, as Wendigos have an extreme advantage at night. So my unit packed up and we moved up north the past few days. Our ground convo was bigger, with us replacing our MRAPs for strikers and labs. This gave us added protection and firepower, as the strikers were equipped with their standard 30mm cannon, and the labs were equipped with 30mm cannons as well, fitted with incendiary rounds and a flamethrower. Our air cover comprised of a flight of Apaches and Cobras. Their call signs were Black Raven and Roaring Dragon. On the ground it was my unit, Hunter, along with Dragoon, Eagle, Reaver, Echo, Griffin, Hitman, Assassin, and Oddball. We linked up with 5 other teams. Call sign Toolbox, Shogun, Reaper, Talon, and Archangel. The initial push into the forest was uneventful, but the deeper we got is when we received contact. It was sporadic at first, as if they were testing us. Random debris would hit the armored hull of our vehicles. Trees would fall and our gunners would see movement in between the trees. We were all calm, save for Rook, who was under his stoic demeanor that he was putting on, and he was pissing himself with fear. As much as he was on everybody's shit list for the stun he had pulled, we still had his back and we hoped that he had ours, so that we could make it out alive. Our air cover engaged first, causing the convo to halt. Apaches and Cobras danced and strafed the tree line, engaging targets at will and destroying their concealment. Plumes of powder white snow flew into the air as 30mm rounds from their chin guns impacted the earth. We heard the howls through the thick plating of the lab as many rounds found their mark. Conrad kept his palm pressed against his head sight, listening carefully for our cue to engage. I observed everyone. We were all in full combat gear, but our camouflage would clash against the wet of the snow, which we didn't mind. It allowed us to keep an eye on each other. That and multicam black worked extremely well on night operations. I gripped my HK-416 tightly, my thumb caressing the area where the safety selector was located. Conrad perked up, and he gave us a thumbs up, calling out, Alright, Hunter Team, time to engage. Let's move out. The cabin came alive with hollers. As the ramp lowered and we quickly filed out and took our fighting positions. The quick blinding sensation of the sun shining on the white snow flashed into my eyes, and was replaced with an almost serene vista. Then the sounds of gunfire, shouts and helicopter blades brought me back to reality. I observed the chaos, moving forward with my unit, engaging where we saw fit. I saw them, their gaunt, emaciated frames, striding through the snow effortlessly. Their howls chilled me to the core, but it was briefly, since I saw one fall from a 30mm round to the chest. I took aim and I fired, the recoil kicking gently against my shoulder, my breathing slow and methodical. We kept pushing up, under the cover of the air and the armor, pushing them deeper into the forest, closing in on their lair. This went on for hours until the moon shined over us. The howls increased as more of them came forth to assist their embattled comrades. I sprinted through the perimeter, made by the armored task force. Vehicles lined up in rows. In between each vehicle was a dug-up position where a heavy weapons team was tasked to help hold the line. Tracers filled the night as rounds found their targets and Wendigos burst into flames. I found Conrad, who relayed to me that we were pushing deeper in. I nodded, sprinting to find the others. I found Rook first, helping a heavy weapons team set up, covering them as they planted their M249s into position. He looked at me, nodded and moved to cover me as soon as the gunner team began suppressing the advancing Wendigos. Once everyone was found, we regrouped with Conrad and Shogun team. We followed behind a group of labs and strikers as they roared forward, their canyons and flamethrowers lashing out at the enemy in front of them. Flames danced forward and enveloped the arm of one of the Wendigos, who in a fit of rage slammed into one of the strikers. The driver backed up quickly, firing away at the beast. More flames enveloped it as if it tried to lash out at us behind a lab, and we fired, backing up as well, a round slamming into it as it thrashed around. The skin burned away, and the muscle melted off the bone as it finally collapsed into the snow in a pile of flame. Another one burst forward from the darkness, but it was quickly gunned down. We kept moving, finally reaching the lair of the beast. As we approached it, a larger Wendigo sprang forth, holding a makeshift large branch as a club. Judging by its size, we assumed that it was an ancient Wendigo, one from centuries in the past. Every vehicle and operator opened fire, all of our rounds impacting it, but it still kept coming. It thrashed around and then tossed its makeshift weapon, it striking the side of one of the labs and then slamming into a few of our allies, sending them sprawling. Rook and I slowly moved forward, heel to toe, firing and reloading as we went. We would move as one, and when I would reload, he would cover me, and then I would do the same for him. The beast slowly kept backing up, roaring into the night. Over on the radio, we heard the air cover coming in hot. Conrad ordered for us to pull back, and we did, leapfrogging back to the safety of the armored vehicles. The Apaches came in, strafing it with their 30mm, followed by the Cobras firing several Tau missiles at it. Finally, 3 Apache Hellfires impacted the area, and the labs moved up, emptying their tanks with their flamethrowers onto the pile of rubble. We let out a ragged cheer, watching as the flames danced around and swallowed everything whole. This was a good day, a day that we would all remember. A day where we took the fight to the darkness and we won. Lately everything has been quiet, no sightings, no incidents. We are enjoying the current peaceful atmosphere. I'm heading out on patrol in a few hours, going to go catch up on the Sasquatch tribes. This past week has been intense. We found out that rogue cryptid groups aren't the only thing that we have to worry about, and it almost cost us dearly. Let me start from the top. When we went to check with the Sasquatch tribes, we arrived at the area and stepped out. The Sasquatch people are extremely peaceful and helpful. They directed us to lost hikers or have even brought us people they saved from certain death in the wild, They communicate with sign language, just as you would with a gorilla. They are an awe to behold in person, I can tell you that much. I exited the MRAP, the crunch of dirt under my boots as I observed the area. We left our weapons in the vehicle, as we usually do when we visit, as the sight of weapons makes them uncomfortable. The area was laid out like a small village, simple yet sturdy huts, and the Sasquatch going about their daily routines. We heard a few grunts and hollers towards us. We waved back kindly and walked towards where their leader was. We reached the center of the small village and the largest one stepped out, standing at a solid 9 feet, and he was a sight to see. Conrad smiled and began signing. "How are you all doing?" he asked, looking around at the village. "Harvest and hunt seem to be very bountiful this year." The leader grunted, signing back, his chest puffed with pride. "Season has been very good. Many strong young ones helped. No one bother us, we stay safe and hidden." He then looked at all of us, beckoning us to follow him. We trailed behind him, sensing his urgency. We arrived at a large hut and we stepped inside. What we found was shocking to say the least. A whole family, husband, wife, their toddler, and an infant. The leader looked at us and began signing again. We find them, running from other humans. Other humans dress funny, their heads covered, but we sensed that they were bad. We waited until night. Bad humans had guns, so we took good humans away from them. Conrad nodded, replying, "Thank you so much for doing that. We will take them now. Please stay hidden and safe, and we will be looking around the area for these other humans." The leader nodded and huffed, leading us to collect the family. From what we gathered on our way back to base was that the family was on the run from an extremist doomsday cult, hidden past our patrol areas. We also learned that they were dabbling in the occult and their leader is pushing to open a dimensional rift and unleash beings from the other side and summon the apocalypse. I would be lying if we thought of this as just another day on the job. I've dealt with werewolves, wendigos, even the occasional skinwalker, but the occult was a different beast. We had heard of teams in Europe dealing with the occult. Vampires, ghouls, fairies, necromancers, and even dragons. Zyhunter knew this and called in a favor from across the ocean. Over the next few days, we had an influx of new personnel from the European bases. I was able to talk to some of the guys, and what I learned had me on the fence. The Europeans were waging a shadow war on every cryptid within their borders, both docile and hostile. While we have a decent relationship with some of the cryptid groups and even made a bond with them, the Europeans have been implementing a scorched earth policy. Nothing lives. I have my reservations, but I do understand that their cryptid population is a completely different system. I just hope they wouldn't try to alter the structure and system we worked so hard to maintain here. We were all called to briefing and given our objectives. The cult was holed up in the mountains, stockpiling weapons and supplies for their apocalypse. Our objective was to hit hard and leave nothing standing. We were given new ammunition variants, courtesy of the European teams. The rounds themselves were all blessed by priests, mixed with melted religious artifacts and imbued with holy ash. We were ensured these would deal with the cultists and whatever creatures they were able to summon. We mobilized and we moved out. Several armored columns followed by air cover and transport. Command was not taking any chances. We also had use of a nearby military base and their artillery pieces if push came to shove. We came under fire as soon as we had neared the mountain. Mostly small arms from what we could tell. The turrets on our transports opened fire and launched smoke canisters to cover our dismount. We piled out and we moved forward, using scattered trees in our vehicles for cover. The air was ripe with the crackle of gunfire and shouts. Overhead, 2 Apaches roared by, their 30mm cannons strafing the enemy defense positions. I dropped near a fighting position, cupping my headset and listening closely to the net.
"Taking fire 11 o'clock.
Contact, right side, right side. Set up that 240 now. I need suppressing fire on our left flank now. Set up that MG here. All units be advised, European Task Force has reported cultists are fielding cryptids. Stand by. 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Check your fire. 2-2, I need a saw to cover that sector or we'll get overrun. Be advised that our Mark 19 is down. Mark 19 down. We got a man down requesting case vac. I was shaken out of my trance by Conrad, who motioned for me to move up. I leveled my rifle and I followed him up the hill. What I saw had me questioning who we were fighting. I saw the cultists, some dressed in plain clothes, others in ceremonial garbs and what appeared to be cryptids that we had never encountered before. These things stood about 7 feet tall, long arms, gaunt frames, horns jutting out of their forehead, black curled talons on their hands and feet, dents where their eyes should be, and a long snout filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. We engaged them, our rounds impacting the beasts. The ammo given to us was effective, but not as fast as we had hoped. It took several shots to take these things down, and they bounded on the hill to our positions fast. The European teams moved up ahead of us, with tall rectangular shields, like those of the Roman legions, only that these shields were covered in what appeared to be explosives. They formed a shield wall between us and the beast, and a large flash of light emanated from the shields themselves, causing the beasts to fall back, covered in burns and gaping holes in their bodies. They slowly moved up, inch by inch, as we fell in behind them. The cultists fell back into their hideouts and we pursued, clearing each room methodically. We finally reached the last chamber, which was larger than the others. We found several Sasquatch chained in a row, beaten and bleeding, and the last of the cultists facing us along with their leader. The man strode up to us, his arms extended from underneath his robes, his mouth spread ear to ear in a fanatical grin. "Welcome, all of you. You are about to witness the cleansing of this world, the rebirth of our civilization." He paced by the chained Sasquatch, taking a blade and slitting the throat of one of them, which caused the rest to wail in despair. "With the blood of these beasts, we open a portal to our lords, who will help us rid the world of impurities." He glared at us. "And all of you." With a flash of red light, a portal opened and several of the unidentified cryptids stepped out, one of them impaling the leader, who laughed in crazed glee onto its claws. The beast charged us and we engaged. The European teams forming their shield wall once more. In a flash of light, several of the cryptids flew back, save for 2 who slammed through the shields. We emptied our magazines into them as they barreled through us, and I felt weightless as one of them grabbed me by the strap of my plate carrier. I pulled on my sidearm and I frantically shot at what I assumed was its face. The hollow point rounds impacted its skin, tearing chunks of its flesh off. It howled and it tossed me across the room, sending me tumbling into a cloud of dust. I felt a sharp pain in one of my sides as I impacted the cave wall and everything went black. When I woke up, I was outside behind my team, next to the Sasquatches that we had found. It was hazy at first, but I slowly got up, feeling a sharp pain in my left arm. I used my rifle as a crutch and I got up, leveling it. Everybody was shouting, with my team and the others from the North American base aiming at the Europeans. Rook looked at me with his eyes wide. "Bro, you're up. Man, this is a shit show. The Euros wanted to wipe out the Sasquatches that we found, but Conrad found out that they were taken from one of the tribes and forced into this. The Euros don't buy it and they want them dead. Man, this day just keeps getting better, doesn't it?" I gave him a dry laugh. "I know, right? God, my arm hurts." He chuckled a bit. "Gotta stop choking the snakes, man. It's bad for ya." I rolled my eyes at him. "Screw you, man." He chuckled and flipped me a quick bird, and then returned to our current situation. Staring down the barrels of people that we were just fighting alongside, minutes felt like hours as neither of us budged. I looked back at the Sasquatches. They were huddled together, scared. I gave them a gentle nod, hoping that I could assure that they would be safe. Suddenly one of the European guys held up a hand, and then cupped his headset. His body language seemed perplexed, maybe even irritated. He slowly lowered his rifle, motioning for the others to do the same. We lowered ours as well, gesturing for the cryptids to follow us. We loaded them onto air transport and had them flown to our base. Once we arrived, the Europeans quickly left, leaving us some of their gear for us to use. From what I can tell, we won't be seeing them anytime soon. Anyways guys, I have to go, getting called to the briefing room. I'll get back to you soon. There's been a breach. We've been hit and I don't know how the hell this happened, but they hit us hard. The Council of Alphas are all nearly dead and it's falling apart around us. The perimeter guns are going loud as I tell you all of this. Whatever werewolves that are loyal to our treaty are helping us hold the line. We've requested backup for nearby bases and are hoping that it comes soon. Let me give you all a rundown of what had happened. We are doing our regular patrols. The entire area was as it should be. Ever since we had gotten rid of that cult, the usual peace had followed. Conrad got a message from the elder pack leader, relaying to us that several packs of younger werewolves broke off just as the previous one did a while back. He said that they were planning something big and that he would relay to us as soon as he figured out what was going on. We relayed the information to Zweihander, who raised the base alert level up to 4, to account for the number of werewolves that were on the loose. I sat in the common area, browsing and relaying information to other bases about sightings and anomalies. And then Conrad ran through the door, startling all of us. We looked at him as he stared at us, his jaw set. "Gear up, we're heading out. Augustus is compromised," he said, turning and heading out. Augustus was the code word for the head alpha of the werewolves, and if he was compromised, that meant the entire power structure of the area would fall into disarray. We geared up, jumped into our MRAP and sped off to the shantytown. While we were en route, Conrad played the recording of what he had received. "Hey man, I know you told me you were also looking into this mess, so I decided to relay some information that I gathered. I found out who's the leader of this insurrection and... Wait, what are you doing here?" You could hear gunshots ring out and an audible thud in the background. "Do not do this. Years of trust, years of kinship will be wiped away. You will bring destruction to our people. Please, I beg of you, think of the generations after us." Trust, kinship. We owe nothing to these humans. They are beneath us. Yet they strut around as if they are one of us, or even worse, above us. We will wipe them from the pages of history. Old man, we are in the new world now. A single gunshot is heard and then the transmission cuts off. We all sat there in stunned silence, contemplating what we had just heard. I leaned back in my chair, my thumb caressing the fire selection switch on my rifle. I turned my head to the front of the vehicle as I heard our driver call out, "Contact 12 o'clock. Looks like several housing areas are burning." Conrad nodded, and then he opened the hatch as the vehicle stopped. It was raining as we poured out of the vehicle, the smoke hanging in the air like a fog. We set up a perimeter, scanning our sectors, slowly moving out. Rick squeezed my shoulder as he moved past me, whispering, "On your 6, bud." We barely made it away from our MRAP when the first shots rang out. 2 of our guys went down. Conrad started yelling to engage. Howls filled the air as we started to push back to our vehicle and collect our wounded. Several large dark figures darted in and out of the haze. Screams reached crescendo as our unit was torn into on multiple sides. Our driver stepped out, firing off his shotgun, hitting one of our assailants. My eyes widened as I saw a clawed hand grab him by his helmet. His arms and legs flailed about as he struggled, the beast taking a chunk out of his throat and tossing his lifeless body into the mud. I opened fire at the beast, the round stitching into its body upward, 2 rounds slamming into its jaw and temple. It slumped over and fell off the MRAP. I turned to face outward, firing several bursts at whatever I could see. I heard Conrad yell to regroup near the vehicle. An MRAP holds about 8 people, a driver, passenger, and 6 in the back. We went in with 8, and from what I could tell, there were only 4 of us left. We all aimed outwards toward the darkness, and the growls accompanied the soft patter of rainfall around us. The growls turned into snarls, followed by full-on roars, and then whimpers as we heard the splash of feet distance themselves from us. We stood there, our bodies pressed together as we each covered a different sector, and then we heard a voice call out to us.
It's okay, you're safe.
We looked at each other. I scoffed, Rook muttering, "If we're safe, I expect to see some fine-ass Thai girls walking up to us." I let out a dry chuckle. I just want a beer at this point, man. This roused a few more laughs with somebody else chiming in.
I hear that.
We all accepted that if we were going to die, we were going to die together, and take as many as them with us. We heard wet footsteps approaching us. We leveled our rifles towards the sound, and a woman came towards us with her hands up. Her red hair was drenched, as was her jacket. She looked at the scene around us, swearing under her breath. Several werewolves came behind her, carrying some of our men. They gingerly placed them near us, and Rook checked all of them. He made note that they were alive, but barely. We loaded them onto our vehicle along with our dead. I turned to face the woman and the werewolves with her. She looked at us, flipping her collar up. "Not all of us accept this violence. We will join you. It might not be now, but soon. We shall join you in this war." She looked around. "I am so sorry that this happened to you." With that, she sprinted off into the dark, her compatriots in tow. I hopped into the driver's seat and I slammed my foot down on the gas. The vehicle bonded on the road, the rain slamming against the metal body. In front of us was the base. The searchlights were on and the gate itself was shut. It opened slowly and a large group of personnel split out, weapons drawn as they waved us in. Howls permeated the air as we got out and the gate slammed shut. They were coming and we did not have long to prepare. Gunners manned the towers along with snipers, and defensive positions were set up around the entrance with our base itself. Our base is built into a mountain, akin to safety bunkers used for nuclear fallout. We had 4 layers of defense, all leading up to the massive doors that separated the outside from the intricate layers of our base of operations. Even then, inside had several checkpoints of machine gun teams setting up in case the outer defenses fell. I quickly made my way to the armory, replenishing my ammo and explosives. Rook followed close behind, alongside Conrad and the other survivors of our team. We all nodded at each other and we made our way out to the outer perimeter. And that's when the gunfire began to start up. They were here. We sprinted through the halls and made it outside. The guard towers were alive with gunfire as they engaged the oncoming threats. Several werewolves made it over the wall, and we engaged them, their large but nimble frames bounding toward our defensive line. More bodies continued to climb over as the towers tried to stem the tide. We kept firing at the massive flesh approaching us. Many fell, but others began approaching on our position. They impacted our positions in massive claws and teeth. We fought back with bullets, knives, and swords. Several of our troops procured melee weapons throughout their time there. Many chose long swords to deal with the wolves, the blades being coated in silver and holy ash. In the ensuing melee, I saw one of our guys slam his sword through the chest of one of them. He was subsequently tackled and torn apart. I can still remember his screams and swears as he pulled the pin on one of his grenades, the explosion taking majority of them with him. We slowly began to drive them back, and this allowed for us to count our losses and wounded. A lot of good men and women were lost in a span of 60 minutes. As we regrouped, we heard commotion at the gate. Conrad nudged his head in that direction and we all made our way to the perimeter. We saw a mass of people huddled by the gate. Men, women, and children. In front of them was the same woman that helped us when we were ambushed. She looked at us, her eyes showing sympathy for what was happening, and she bowed her head. "Please, We have nowhere to go. We are no longer welcome since we did not participate in this purge. I beg of you, I plead, that you can find it in your hearts to help us." We looked at each other and then at her, standing in awkward silence for a few moments until somebody shoved through us muttering, "God damn it, man, these kids are freezing, get them in." We snapped out of our trance and rushed them inside of the base. Inside, guards and medical personnel tended to them alongside our wounded. I looked at the scene and then I slowly turned to the other side of the medical ward, with a line of body bags hanging around. I hung my head and I slowly walked past them towards the unit quarters. I changed out of my soaked uniform, traded it in for a warm set, sitting down and staring at myself in the mirror. Tonight was going to be a long night. My mind was still trying to process what just happened. And on the radio, I heard that reinforcements were being mustered to our area. I don't know how long we can hold out, but we've been told that they're amassing for another assault. The strongest werewolves of the refugee group have volunteered to help us, and unmanned combat drones have been deployed to assist with defenses. I know that I'm not going to be able to sleep for a while. Take care, everyone. I hope you all live full and happy lives.